Hello, everyone. Welcome to Okcoin Live. My name is Shreyas. I'm on the product marketing team, and this is episode number 43. Hey, Harrison, how's it going?
Doing well. Really excited to have Flex Chapman here with us today to talk a little bit about Krause House.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited, just to hear the whole story of behind the scenes of Krause House, and just for a quick overview. Krause House, it's a crazy community of people that are trying to buy a trying to buy an NBA team. So, just like learning about the whole story of how this idea came about and how they're going to execute it, is something that I'm really excited about because I keep saying NFTs are like way more than images and animal profiles as your social media picture. So just learning about this community on how they're using it, Web3, like they have a DAO, they have NFTs, and they have tokens. So let's get into it and see more. So let's bring in our guest, Flex Chapman. How are you?
You're doing good. Thanks so much for having me.
So Harrison Flex is the co-creator of Krause House. He's a self-proclaimed bench warmer, which I love in that bio. He used to be a software, or he is a software engineer, a sneaker collector, and just a aspiring men's league MVP. Flex responsible for the growth and development of the Krause House, and also helps with product development. So Flex, tell me a little bit about what brings you here. What brings you into Krause House?
Yeah. You nailed the bio. You touched all on all the good stuff. So yeah, longtime software engineer. So I got introduced to crypto very much from like the technical side of things. So I've been kind of keeping an eye on things all the way back to probably 2014 or 2015. Long time basketball fan. Played my whole life. Played all the way through high school and then a little bit in college. And then but just been a fan of the game for so long. And so kind of the journey of Krause House is actually kind of a simple one. I think when I first heard about DAOs, both my the co-creator and myself, who goes by Commodore, um, we saw DAOs as kind of this opportunity that adds this like human coordination or community centric wrapper around all these crypto primitives that we've grown to love, like DeFi and tokens and NFTs, as you were mentioning earlier. And so we were just kind of brainstorming some ideas of like DAOs are really interesting. Let's contribute to a few. Let's maybe start one of our own. And we thought about like what is the probably the most ideal use case of a DAO. And we think it's bringing together not only financial capital but human capital all over the world to go achieve something that is really difficult to do by yourself, but as a collective, it's a lot more feasible. And so, yeah, crazy idea. We said, what if we got the 3 billion NBA fans worldwide to all come together and try to land on the cap table of a professional basketball team, specifically in the NBA. So, got started about a year plus ago, and it's just been crazy to see all the talented, dedicated community members kind of flow in. Literally, like 50% of Cross House is actually outside the U.S. So we're truly a global community, and we think there's a realistic path to make this happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think before we get into maybe a little bit deeper into the crypto and Web3 aspects of this, I'd really love to hear where the Flex Chapman name comes from. I think many people
Yeah,
would be interested to know.
yeah, absolutely. So it's actually a rendition of actually a long time NBA player. His name is Rex Chapman. He actually does I think he does commentary now, mostly on the college front, if I'm not mistaken. But Commodore, who I alluded to earlier as co-founder with me of Krause House, he hopped into crypto, kind of doing the DAO thing a little bit earlier than I did. I think he started a podcast. He was even kind of contributing on a few different DAOs. So he picked a pseudonym, and I remember him saying like, "All right, time to pick yours." And I'm like, I'm not really a pseudo guy, but whatever. You've already kind of gained this a little bit of following. I'll just do it. And so I think kind of you see a lot of the aesthetics with these crypto companies kind of go back to like early '90s, kind of the early internet days. It's kind of like their aesthetic and the motif they're going with as they build their product. Krause House is obviously a reference to the Bulls GM during the Michael Jordan years and Jerry Krause. And so I thought, what is my earliest childhood basketball memory? And it was like summer league, maybe second or third grade. I'm a little guy and I'm playing in the DC area. And Rex Chapman's actually playing for the Bullets at the time. I just remember that year, everybody kind of calling me Rex. Like I said, I don't know if it was my looks, my style of play, what it was, but that was like my name the whole year. And so that was like my earliest childhood memory. Happened to be in the '90s, so I said, hey, let's go with Flex. Obviously, not thinking that. It's weird to say, probably more people know me today as Flex than my actual Doc's name. But yeah, it was a very quick decision, and here we are.
Man, if you had game like Rex Chapman when you were a third grader, I just have to ask what happened.
Yeah, what happened? Yeah. I wish I had a good excuse, like it was an injury or something like that. No, I just fell off.
No, that's so impressive that you made it all the way to college ball. I myself was a bench warmer, but never made it past high school varsity. So that's pretty awesome to have made it to college.
Yeah. Just always been just obsessed with the game, and I still play as often as I can. Where I am now, and it's yeah, it's something that it's funny. There's a lot of parallels between just playing. Anytime you play organized sports, period, and DAOs, I see a lot of like parallels, right? It's very meritocratic. Like usually, the best five guys on the team will typically start, and every year a new role is open, and I think that lends itself likely to like everyone who's come to the DAO and with sports experience, it's like, oh, okay, like I've been here before. I kind of understand how this whole process works. So that's actually been cool to see as from an operator side of the DAO.
And have you
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, Trios.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, have you noticed the same effectively cream rising to the crop in the DAO, like with specific contributors? Has our kind of starting five kind of formed in the Krause House DAO?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, actually, I think we're up to five core contributors now, just by coincidence, that are working on Krause House full time. But I think what's really like kind of a DAO superpower almost is this concept of like liquid contribution, right? I think there's five core Krause House team members, but there's probably another 60 or so that contribute anywhere from 10 to 30 hours a week. And it's really interesting because that basically depends on their career, their personal life, but that kind of can scale up and scale down. And so DAO contribution is actually really interesting. It has a lot of problems, but I think that ability to onboard something quickly and have them contributing within a matter of days and not sometimes months compared to kind of the corporate or startup world has been really, really awesome to watch. And of course, people are going to come in, you're going to get the people that overcommit because they're excited about the project and they just don't really follow through. But the ones that do continuously stick around and hop on different work streams and have the capacity to do so, yeah, those ones, like you said, that thing will usually rise to the top and end up being somewhere in core or looked at as like a steward or a thought leader within the community.
So I played basketball when I was in high school, and then after eighth grade, no, after 10th grade, I moved over to water polo. So just random fun fact. But like, I think I want to just peel it back a little bit, and I want to understand a little better of how did the Krause House like DAO work? What's going on in here? Like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? I guess the first question.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's a big question, but I love it. So I think the vision has not changed at all. In fact, we actually think it's gotten even bigger. I know that sounds crazy to say, but we just think that. So backing up a little bit, I think we're in an age now, like we've seen just the rapid growth of just information, how easy it is to for someone to be a self-taught engineer, right? Like, YouTube University, they call it, just getting sometimes free videos, if not, wildly cheaper than any sort of college education you could get out there. This information is so accessible, and you're seeing things just kind of lightning speed growth. Anyone who's been in the crypto community for the past several years, they're just seeing how fast things move. And so I think we're at an interesting time, like I said, where I think people have the capacity. There already is just like a rational, passionate fan base baked into sports already. Like I'm a Wizards fan, and it's just been a rough couple decades for us. But I'm still so emotionally attached, and I consider myself part of a larger community that is the Wizards fan base. And I think we're at a time now where being able to contribute back to help add value to the franchise is there. And what I mean is that can I take nights, weekends, free time to help out with engineering work or data science work to my fan base? And I think that the answer is yes. So for us, it's not necessarily purely a financial upside thing. It's more about the intrinsic values and being able to contribute and add value to the teams that I support and not just sit on the proverbial sidelines, right? But in order to do that, I think it is like that shared upside and reciprocity you get in ownership, and that like that psychological agency you have when you have the autonomy and agency over something is required in order to do that. So, like I said, it's the perfect mix of the extrinsic value of actually owning an asset that will appreciate, but also the intrinsic stuff, which is feeling like, hey, if I do these three things for a team, that might result in one more win, which might result in a playoff berth. It's like that is, I think, is the main driver in our community. So to answer your question, I think our goal right now is not only we're not waiting to get onto the cap table to necessarily figure this all out. We want to DAO just as good as anyone else today, and that means proper governance structures. That means quality onboarding. That means educational materials. All that stuff that we go through now and refining that process can eventually transition over to actually operating a team, in my opinion. And so it may not even just stop with basketball, right? Just like crypto has primitives, sports has primitives. There's ticketing, there's fans, there's media, there's players, there's coaches, right? That stuff is ubiquitous across every sport you look at. And so how it works is kind of an ongoing refinement process. But luckily, we have the right people in place that are like diehard treasury management gurus or onboarding nerds or governance experts, right? We're kind of, it's an ongoing process, but we're putting those things in place today because, like I said, eventually they're going to transition over to being able to operate a franchise, and we firmly believe that collectively it's totally possible to operate a franchise like this.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing. I mean, um, it's honestly like the perfect. We like to talk about here a lot. Crypto for all. That's kind of I would say our biggest mantra as a company, and this is a perfect example of it. Someone that already has a 9 to 5 can contribute their nights and weekends, or they can take time out of their workday to add value to an NBA team, which previously was only offered to people who had $1 billion or more to in capital to kind of contribute in or be a part of. So that's really amazing to see. One thing I was curious about, you talk about being able to maybe add a win to the W column for the Washington Wizards. Like, how would that? Could you actually talk a little bit about how someone in your community might be able to do that, or how you would be able to do that as like one of the co-founders of Krause House?
Yeah. So we think about this. We think about this in a few different ways. I think one common misconception that people, especially when they read our headline, I think their mind immediately goes to like Wall Street bets, right? Like, let's come in, let's trade players, let's fire the coach, right? And all the general manager and stuff, which is totally really fun and exciting to think about. But I think day one, right? If we got on the cap table of a team tomorrow, I think our first responsibility would be to analyze where we could add the most value today, and then kind of expand outward. And so that might be something general management or player development, but it might not be. It might be more on the fan engagement side. And I think John Wooden, famous coach at UCLA, always talks about this. The very first day of practice for his guys that he would always, he's one of the most winning coaches of all time, more NCAA championships than anybody else. The first day of practice, everyone just put on their socks. Like, he just literally like 50, 100 times it was putting on the socks, because his mentality was, if you put on your socks right, if you put on your socks wrong, you can get blisters, which eventually causes you to slow down, which translates to, a few possessions, which translates to losses. So it's like these small things that start to build on top of each other. And so we kind of think about it the same way. Like right now, we have maybe 6 or 7 data scientists in our community. Normally, right, front office will have 2 or 3 max. Most have one. The Los Angeles Lakers have one guy, right? And so we can immediately. Oh, we might have to edit this out. Sorry. Do you guys hear the?
Yeah.
Yeah. I swear, I LA. I think is the most injury prone. There's like 20 of these a day. Start the data scientist community could gladly, 5, 6x output these analytics reports just by being able to call themselves owners, right? And so we think all these mix of hard skills and soft skills combined collectively um, results in more games won. I don't think it'd be necessarily specific to one task or one thing. I think it's a community of tens of thousands of people all over the world that kind of add value collectively.
I really like that coach analogy because my coach always kind of worked our trainings the same way. We spent a lot of time on like just the bare basics. So, since we're talking about bare basics, our listeners and our audience are different areas in their crypto journey. So let's just bring it back. Tell me what is a DAO and how does your DAO like function on just the core basics?
Yeah, sure. So a DAO, the acronym stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And I can say as an engineer, everyone has to stop. Marketers have to stop letting us name stuff because that's way too nerdy for what it actually is, right? They're decentralized to agree. They are not autonomous in the way that I think it's meant to. Just right now. And they're not even all that organized. So I don't know if the name quite matches, but essentially what it is normally it's a tokenized community online, right? Very similar to any community you could find. Think of like a Facebook group. We happen to obviously use Discord for several different reasons, but usually it's an online community. In our case, with hyper specific interests, right? Like crypto and basketball, but then also with aligned incentives and goal, right? And I think that's one thing that's been really interesting to see with DAOs is people kind of pile in um, just with their username, no background, don't need to really know anybody. But there's some sort of mission, right? It could be even small. Like if you look at other social DAOs like FWB, they're not necessarily going to acquire anything, but these are all people who love music and art and enjoy hanging out. And maybe the mission there is to bring people together in these new means. So there's usually some sort of call to it. Like we went through Seed Club, right? And like one of the things that Jess, the founder of Seed Club, would always talk about is what's your call to adventure. Why would someone pick to go to your DAO and hang out and just talk, or contribute, or show up to town halls? Like, what is that thing? And that's mostly what you see kind of DAO centered around right now is that there's some sort of call to adventure, and it's an online community, mostly powered by crypto in the sense of they'll have an NFT that represents access and ownership, or they might be token gated. So it's essentially, I think tokenized community is probably the best name that I've seen for what is actually going on today. Not to say that we couldn't get further decentralized and further autonomous down the road, but we're not quite there yet.
So that's a really great explanation. And two things that kind of caught my ear is the token part and the NFT part. Your token name is Krause, and then you also launched a Genesis NFT collection, and then another NFT collection for the physical world's first physical basketball court. Tell me how those tools, the token and the NFT, plays into like it plays into Krause House itself.
Yeah, good question. So our token right now is a pure utility token in the sense that it serves for governance. So every token that you hold is
So
one vote from.
if I can just interrupt that a little bit, it's not a liquid token, or is it?
Um, it's highly illiquid at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. like there's LP out there that has some in it, but it's for the most part it's a liquid. So that's what is kind of used to cast votes in for proposals and things like that. So another key component of a DAO, which I probably should have said in my previous answer, is that it's designed to be permissionless, meaning that anyone who is by some sort of criteria, that might be an NFT holder, that might be a token holder, that might just be a public member in some cases, but they're able to put forth a proposal that can do something within the organization. If you have an idea for an app that could benefit it, the the community, or you want to do some graphic design work, all that stuff can be voted on by the community and dictate how they use Treasury, but then also how they move the DAO forward. And so any token holder right now, that is a governance token. The other one you alluded to was the Genesis NFT. That was kind of our initial NFT sale to seed the initial treasury. So that was back last November. We sold out of the whole collection, which raised 1,000 ETH, which was roughly 4.6 million in US at the time. And again, that's a treasury to go kind of bet on contributors and put forth like, different allocation of capital to go, drive this whole mission forward. The most recent one I think you touched on was, so for NFT NYC, we threw a really big event. We had a 3-on-3 tournament featuring like a lot of different pros that play overseas, some former D1 guys. We had a dunk contest, but the actual court itself, we reached out to a bunch of digital creators all over the internet. Really awesome work, and they got like a 9x9, if I'm not mistaken, section of the court to paint on. So they all submitted their renderings. We got them put on the court. We installed the court, and then we sold pieces of that court as NFTs. But if you bought the digital version, you actually received the corresponding physical piece of the court as well. And the difference between that and the Genesis is actually they're quite similar. The NFT gets you access to the Krause House. The drops were different, as you know. Like one is an actual court with digital renderings. The first one was kind of a ticket style and more like our Genesis NFT. But for the most part, they have the same utility between both.
Gotcha. And just to clarify, what is that utility?
Yeah, so it's the admittance into our community. So our community happens to be NFT gated. So we have a public community that kind of just hangs out, talks Web3 and basketball, sports more broadly. But then if you have the NFT, you get access to like all the channels, right? Which is like the different contributor streams, the media kind of channel. We have countless different channels where people kind of coming in and hanging out. And then you can actually either join a team or submit a proposal. That's kind of the NFT gated functionality. There's also some other stuff too. Like we recently acquired a team in the Big Three, which is Ice Cube's professional 3-on-3 basketball league, featuring a lot of like former NBA players and really, really top talented. So the team we bought is the Ball Hogs. So if you're an NFT holder, you get tickets to the game. You also own the team just like everybody else does, right? It's a full collective ownership. We bought a controlling interest of the Ball Hogs in the form of NFTs, and they're just all in our treasury. So anyone who's in Krause House by proxy also owns that team as well. So the utilities is kind of up and down, and they're kind of in the sense that any kind of new acquisition we play, you'll get granted access. We do live shows sometimes within the Discord. We have a book club coming up with Edon Ravine, who's one of the top basketball trainers of all time. He's worked with LeBron and Steph, right? And so he's hosting a book club with it. So it's all those kind of like social perks you get from being within the community as well.
And once you are led into the NFT gated part of the DAO, do you have any governance rights? Like does owning Krause tokens allow you to vote on those proposals you mentioned?
Exactly. So yeah, we have a pretty standard one token, one vote governance model. Our governance team is actually working on a brand new kind of governance system right now, which is like I'm really excited about. A lot of thought went into it, but right now we have a standard one token, one vote model. And to your point, yes, exactly. If you have even a single token, you can vote on any and all proposals that you see fit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I guess I'm thinking back to talking about the crypto for all stuff again. In a way, like I think of DAOs as companies where you can actually have more of a say than if you just worked for a traditional hierarchical C-suite kind of runs everything, just makes all the decisions. But in the case of Krause House, you can go in and buy. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of financial capability, but go in and buy a number of tokens and have a real say in the company, and then also become a part owner of the ball hogs. Do
Yeah.
they do people in the DAO, since they own part of the team, are they like, do they receive part of the team's winnings too? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we own the IP to the team. There's a small royalty that goes back to the league. Um, I think a lot of that stuff is, I don't want to misspeak because actually I haven't been that part of the kind of the legal side of that. But I from what I gathered, a lot of that stuff is still being like worked out. Like if they get a new kind of broadcasting deal, like what's the revenue split there? If we launch a site to sell the ball hogs merchandise, like how do we actually get that back to the league? I think that stuff is still being worked out. Um, so it's the first year that they've done this, and so like I think there's a lot of like question marks, and they kind of meet regularly exactly how that's going to happen. So I think the short answer is like stay tuned on all the fine tuned details on that. But something you said earlier, which I think is interesting, is like you have to have um, the financial capabilities to buy those tokens. What I think is so cool about DAOs and like a again an out of the box feature that has a lot of competitive advantage over traditional organizations is when we think of ownership before, there's always been some sort of like financial barrier to that. You had to trade something of monetary value in order to receive something else to actually own it. What's really cool about DAOs is that we have contributors that get paid purely in our governance token. So they're choosing, instead of saying, "Hey, pay me with something like a stable coin like USDC or ETH," I want to earn more say into the community that I'm working in, which I think is really fascinating. Where you can, instead of, if you can't maybe afford 10,000 Kraus today, maybe you can put forth a proposal to do design work, and then at the end of 3 months, you might have the equivalent there. So I think that's kind of an interesting dynamic that we haven't quite seen. Like, I don't think you could go into Google and request to get paid all in stock as your bi-weekly paycheck. And so, but if you believe in the company that much and you believe in the mission that much, that's something that someone would be interested in doing. And DAOs work like that today.
Gotcha.
So
So
do people take like bounties to get these done?
Yeah, good question. It's funny. Bounties, I haven't decided what I think about that. They work for a very specific use case, right? It has to be, the output has to be something objective. Like something like a logo redesign wouldn't be a great bounty, right? Because like what's a good logo to someone may not be good to someone else. So like how do you how do you solve for that? So anything subjective doesn't really make a good bounty. Um, Also, like it has to have a very clear lifestyle, life cycle and delivery. It can't be something that's kind of like an ongoing basis or could result in scope creep or things like that, because then that would obviously affect price and things. So most of the stuff and the work that gets done is actually via proposal. Like, hey, I think I'm a web designer or a developer, and I think you guys need a new website, and here's how much it costs. Like, here's the timeline, here's the scope, and just let me go do X. So most of them come on proposal basis. We also have what we call contributor streams, which is a like allocated pools of capital to go pay people on kind of an ongoing basis. So like a good example of that would just be like a product engineer who's working on anything from full stack development to kind of Web3 or protocol oriented projects. So most of them are on proposal, to answer your question, but we do have people that have claimed several bounties. But it's definitely lopsided toward much more towards streams and proposals.
Got it.
with that, So that being said, proposals, I could see that kind of creating some latency in
Yeah,
decision making and creating product features or enhancements to the DAO. Um, I guess, is there anything you guys have done to solve that, or is everything kind of functioning well? Like how would you respond to that?
that's a great point. I think that's one area of friction right now that I think definitely Krause House should aim to solve and improve, but even probably DAOs more broadly. If you think about the life cycle of that, like someone submits a proposal, typically there's rounds of feedback, right? And so we have a weekly stewards meeting where the stewardship team, myself included, I think there's maybe 8 of us at the moment. We go over proposals and give feedback, and the goal at the end of those is not a yes no decision. It's, do you have all the necessary information in this proposal where we think members of the community can actually vote on it and put their best vote forward, because they have all the information that they need. Uh, and so, to your point, if we have a couple weeks where we're giving feedback and like, oh, make sure to include this, maybe take out this, circle with this person, they might be working on the same thing. And then once it does move over, it's on snapshot for 72 hours, right? And then it's voted. So you're right, it can be some lag there, it can be some latency. So we're working on ways to improve that on our side, right? And so more async proposal reviews, to get feedback kind of quicker and not necessarily just wait till the meeting. Working on having more asynchronous document management so people can just say, hey, make better templates, better design, how-to videos, depending on the person's learning type. So these are all things we're aiming to improve, but I think it's not just a Krause House problem. I think it's a DAO problem more broadly. But yeah, no, it is a good one. That's one of the pain points that we're seeing, that causes that. I still think that's probably faster timeline than some of these startup interviewing processes that I've heard of or seen. But still, it could be, um, if our claim to fame, if you will, is easily get up and running and get paid, and we're taking a long time, then obviously that's not great either. So yeah, we're aiming to slim down that initial proposal to contribution time quite a bit.
Gotcha. Yeah, and on that point, kind of a related question around the trouble with DAOs, I suppose. We've seen other DAOs similar to Krause House pop up and kind of go away. It seems like Krause House has some staying power, which is exciting. But like someone like a Constitution DAO, or we saw the DAO get built up to buy an NFL team, and then also the Dune book. I don't know if you have heard of this one either, but similar situation. So curious what learnings you've gained from those. In some ways, those are great successes, but also failures, also because there was nothing that kind of ended uh, without much discussion around it. So curious, like how you guys are trying to make improvements on those, and what you're doing to excite people to stay in your community for an extended period of time.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do want to. I always like to shout out Constitution DAO because it's funny that a lot of people, probably rightfully so, think that we started after them, but we actually we beat them by several months. And
Hmm.
but what is great about that, right, is that they really kind of put DAOs on the map. At least start to see what's possible with people. I think when we first came out, I think people thought we were crazy on two fronts. Like, where are you going to get the money to even get 1-2% of an NBA team? And then everyone was like, will the league even allow something like this? And then after Constitution DAO, I think we were only crazy on one of those fronts, right? Raising 50 million in a couple of days didn't seem that hard anymore, considering we're watching it happen in real time with Constitution DAO. They had a great team. A lot of people from Constitution joined Krause House because it kind of got introduced to what was possible when people want to come together on the internet and kind of do the impossible, right? And so yeah, that was great. That was great to see. We kind of live under this mantra of like, come for the mission, stay for the people, right? Like I think people read our headline and say, whoa, this is really cool. Statistically speaking, when you're born, you have a better chance of playing in the NBA than you have to become a billionaire, right? And so like it is out of limits for vast majority of people. And so you can, like, I think that's resulted in some of our staying power too is that there's mentality where like this is my only opportunity to ever land on the cap table in an NBA team, and that's kind of everyone's get out of bed every morning type moment, which is even the smallest design project or fixing bugs on a site or running an analytics report can help further this mission for the entire collective. And I think that's really really important to think about. I always talk about the importance of a mission when people ask me about starting DAOs. So you have to have something that people really really want to rally behind, because we have spurts too. Like a couple good news, the Discord's flooded, everyone's excited, and then a couple of weeks goes by and it's a little bit quieter. It's bear market. Hey, are we actually going to do this thing, right? And then it spikes up again. So you have to have something that people are going to be able to rally behind in those kind of peaks and valleys, as you're on this journey. So that's one piece of advice I give all the time to people is really make sure that mission resonates with people long term, because building a DAO is really, really difficult. Keeping people around is really difficult, and then trying to accomplish a mission that's never been done before is obviously pretty difficult as well. So, yeah, you have to kind of strap in and be in it for the long haul. And all of those communities that have those audacious mission, I think the more the merrier. I'm really like it's a bummer that some of them kind of phased out. And I'm glad to see that some are still around, because I think the more that we have and the more we can point to see what's really possible, I think it helps us all collectively.
Definitely.
So I want to dig into a little bit on the second part of your craziness is will the league actually even allow that? Where is that? Like what's going on with that today?
Yeah, good question. So I think here's how we kind of position it, right? Um, I talked earlier about the potential energy that is just sitting idle. I think with these fan bases, right? I think fans in general are looked at as kind of this mob of people supporting one team. They walk in the stadium, they cheer for a couple hours, and they leave. In actuality, like these are developers, they're entrepreneurs. There's marketers, accountants, lawyers, people that can add a lot of value. So I think our pitch actually is surprisingly simple, right? For 1 or 2%, I think in the shorter term, 1%, 1 or 2% of the team, we can be the most value add person on your cap table, hands down. Like entering into new international markets, creating content and media, building products and services. Some of those might be Web3 native, but some may not be. Some may be more traditional apps or Web2 products. You won't get that with any other single owner or ownership group, but you get that with the Krause House. And so I think from where we're playing right now, it's highly feasible that I think a team would be willing to take a bet. I think there's a very very strong first mover advantage here. The first couple teams to do this will be at a significant advantage compared to ones that do it later. And we think that it's an inevitability that teams will kind of open up to building kind of these on ramps and guardrails to allow the fans to actually contribute to the franchise. And that doesn't mean, like I said earlier, come in day one and vote on who to draft or general management. I think that's where people's mind usually goes. But you have to remember, they have like a sales team. They have a digital marketing team. A lot of these times, these teams are understaffed and maybe don't necessarily have the modern tools and think of it like a fast growing startup does. And that's where we would kind of want to come in and help wherever we can. And so I think from that perspective, especially to an owner, the entire thing makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like the headline for Krause House or some of these other DAOs is like very much an instant gratification play of like we're going to buy an NBA team, uh, but then it's also like, wait, guys, we have XYZ number of steps to get there. We have a lot of work to actually do it. So, I mean, it's amazing you guys have been around this long. It's great that you've gotten people to sign up because of the mission, but stay for the people and the growth along the path to that mission being accomplished.
Mhm.
It's awesome to see. A question for you though: what is a realistic timeline to even like be able to bid on an NBA team or like potentially take part in an ownership group?
Yeah, it's tough to say. Like, I hate to, I don't want to have a cop out answer here. But unfortunately, like, there's a lot of stuff, I don't want to say out of our control, but like, uh, just like most industries, there's like ebbs and flows of the activity of the front office. Like right now, August is notoriously dead. Like summer league is over, the draft is over, free agency's just about over, and so sales cycle is a little bit slow. Then I think we're battling right now kind of the mainstream cynicism of not only crypto but being in a bear market doesn't help. I think a lot of people are in like a "I told you so" state of crypto until we get kind of the next bull run. So I don't want to say that it's out of our control, but there's external factors that are going to either tighten that timeline or kick it down the road, if you will. Um, this is like wildly aggressive, but I would say that I would hope before the end of this year we do something with a major league and a professional sports team. Um, like I'm even thinking I'm crazy as I say that out loud, but that would be it's hyper aggressive, but that's what we're going for.
You got to believe, man. That's the only
I
way it's
know,
going to happen.
I know, it really is.
So Harrison, one thing that we haven't really talked is Krause House's acronyms. Some people might have heard WAGMI for like anything NFT. It's like we're all going to make it. Krause House has their own thing called WAGBAT, which is we're all going to buy a team.
Ah,
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly. Yeah, it's on the jersey. It's plastered all over our website. Uh, the bat emoji is one of the top reactions that we have in Discord. So yeah, it's our battle cry, if you will.
I mean, it's come true already too. Like it's not an NBA team, but still owning any sort of professional basketball team is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that the ball hogs part kind of got me really interested. I feel I was a little out of touch when I saw that. How does that play into like the bigger vision of an NBA team? Is that more like, hey, let's buy this team? Like we'll get an understanding of how to run it as like a DAO, and then whatever we learn from it, we'll go to the NBA, or is it some other motive behind that?
No, you nailed it. I think that we look at the NBA as the best professional sports league in the world, right? And so part of our mission is being able to prove legitimacy that hey, a bunch of kids on the internet actually can add value to not only the team but the league as a whole, and we firmly believe that. But we're not expecting anyone to take our word for that. Like we have to actually show that, and that I think the best use case for that is acquiring a team and kind of showing what we can do as far as IRL activations and what we can do from a scouting and analytics perspective, totally. But then that might also be off the court stuff like partnering with reputable NBA players, partnering with reputable brands and sponsors. Like all those things kind of factor into our legitimacy and how the league views what we're doing. So, uh, but for the Bulldogs case, that was fantastic. Like I remember going to the draft and like looking at potential players to pick, and I remember we have an analytics team that prepares the scouting report every week, and that's been awesome to see, right? Because week one it was this little report. Hey, here's some stats. Here's what to watch out for. And the coach for the Ball Hogs is NBA Hall of Famer Rick Barry. So it's I'm like sending him these scouting reports, and he's like, "Wow, these are great. This is fantastic." And he's using stuff that we put in the scouting report in practice. Then he asked for some like, "Hey, do you have any strategies based on what you're seeing?" So then we started baking in, okay, because the players in rotation is set up like this, trap this guy when he gets to the corner because he struggles with corner threes. So we started kind of dripping in like actual tactics and strategy there as well. And then the last few weeks we've been sending post game analytics, like plus minus of each player, optimal rotation based on the rotation that they had on the court, obviously stats from that previous game. So that kind of gave us a lot of confidence. Like there's an NBA Hall of Famer saying that this is more he's had to work with than the entire time he's been playing or coaching, right? And so those are the kind of things that we want to continue to explore with, and we want to be able to have those things under our belt by the time we get to a league like the NBA and say, hey, we know we can do this because look what we did for the ball hogs, or look what the activation we did in NFT NYC. Like, look at the output of this new analytics report that got 1 million views based on the ideas that and the data that we crunched. All these things collectively, like I was mentioning, add to that legitimacy, and we want to just be ready to go once it's our turn.
Hmm. That's funny. I'm just thinking about my Twitter timeline, and I am a part-time NBA Twitter guy, part-time crypto Twitter guy, and those got to be the two strongest Twitter communities out there. So
Absolutely.
combining them, uh, the amount of value add there is, I mean, it's immeasurable. I can't believe more NBA teams aren't trying to extract some of that value. There's so many passionate fans. So great to hear you
Yeah,
guys.
that's no, that's a good question. I think that's our value proposition. Is I think that they want to. This is I think the biggest, like, after going to different NBA markets and meeting with front office and in some cases like owner, like we've met with owners themselves, majority owners. They want to do this. They realize the value that their fans have, and they realize that there's all this ability that you can tap into, but they're focused on other things and have their hands full, but they want that kind of trusted method to get that information. Because obviously we all know Discord. If you just spin up a Discord and say, hey guys, like have at it, it's just chaos, right? And so they're kind of looking at us as that trusted partner that says, hey, we trust you to build the infrastructure that we need, make the decisions that we need to do, consult us on what to do to access that pool of talent. So we kind of think of ourselves as this middleware between these billion-dollar global franchises that are somewhat of a walled garden. People really don't know how they operate, and then all the fans, right? And so us kind of being that layer in between, we can serve both parties to get the best. Like, obviously the value proposition for the fan side is really clear, but even there's a strong value proposition on the owner side too, to making all this happen and add value to their underlying team that they own. So that's kind of that's the framing that we're operating under.
So in general, like I think we're all on the same page. Like sports communities and crypto is like a very powerful combination. So to kind of support that, I saw you guys started the Krause House Accelerator to
Hmm.
help like other sports. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So that one was awesome. I guess I'll call it an experiment. I think we're planning for season 2 here pretty quickly, but we just got so much inbound from people that wanted to first just start a DAO. Hey, like, I want to buy the Broncos, or um, the Chelsea bid is up. Like, could we spin a DAO around that? It started out with very much getting those, and I remember getting on calls with people and just walking through. Yep, we need all the people that we can get doing this, so I'll help give you some tips on how to start out and some suggestions, just for 30 minutes or an hour talking to them. Then the DMs just started to kind of flood in between people doing anything at the intersection of Web3 and sports. And so we said, hey, why don't we like productize this a bit and put everyone through kind of a dedicated learning environment. We went through Seed Club, which is a social community accelerator. We had a really great experience, learned a ton, and the value that we got from going through with other people, roughly at the same stage, was like immensely valuable. So we said, hey, like, why don't we always brag. It doesn't sound like something you should brag about, but we made more mistakes along this way than we got right. Right, we were wrong more than we were right. But like, I think what we're really good at doing is recognizing that early on and iterating and improving all these processes. So we're like, why have people go make the same mistakes? Come through us with an accelerator. It was pretty intense. It was probably 2 or 3 times a week for a couple of hours, guest speakers and all that. But overall, it was really well received because it, in every sense of the word, accelerated people to learn more, go through this with other people that are at the same stage, and really get a lot of value out of that. So that was the point. And I think what's exciting about season 2 coming up is that you don't necessarily have to have a DAO trying to go buy a team. You can just be anything at the intersection of Web3 and sports. So collegiate athlete NIL is interesting. Player NFTs is one that we've gotten reached out to. Um, IRL kind of uh, basketball sneaker kind of cultural DAOs. So now it's kind of expanded a little bit into that next concentric circle where if you're working on sports and something crypto, like we can add some value to. So that's really the premise of it.
Are you guys spinning up KH Ventures anytime soon?
Yeah, that's another one. I so Luke K, OG in the community, has been there since almost day one. Awesome dude. He's coming has a venture background. He's working on all kinds of stuff for capital allocation, Cage Ventures, an acquisition fund. He's been working around the clock to kind of pull together capital to go actually invest in all different kinds of assets. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But I'm excited about that one.
Awesome.
So that's cool. I kind of want to start wrapping it up. So have one question for our viewers is what kind of Krause House alpha can you give us? Because we love alphas here.
um, okay, here's some serious alpha. I think starting September, October, we're going to really start to pound pavement and look for these opportunities with an NBA team. We have several circled for meetings and follow up meetings and things like that. But there's going to be hopefully by the end of this fall, maybe early winter, some exciting stuff going on in the Krause House. Trying to think of what else. After post NFT NYC, we just had such great feedback around bringing people together in this kind of like basketball culture environment that not is necessarily Web3 forward, but more just like basketball forward. So our experiences team right now, we're planning kind of a traveling tour. We're potentially partnering with some like major brands to do some local activations and get involved in the community. So I think that should be announced sometime here within the coming months as well. So some really exciting stuff happening. And like obviously our Discord's public. People can hop in if you go to krausehouse.club. So KRAUSE and then house HOUSE.club CLUB. Then like you can Twitter or Instagram, all the socials, Discord, link to OpenSea where you can buy an NFT for to access in the community. So stay tuned because yeah, there's going to be some fun stuff coming up.
Will you guys be in New York for either of these upcoming conferences? Will people be able to meet you in person at all?
Yes, I'll be in New York in general. I don't know. Probably September and October, maybe into November as well. So I'm happy to stop by those, and I'll be there. Obviously, my DMs are open for anyone that wants to kind of reach out. But yeah, we're pretty active at most conferences, not necessarily with events. NFT NYC was our first big event, but we usually quite a few members of our community go over and hang out. So NFT NYC, a lot of us were at South by Consensus, ETH Denver. So yeah, we're pretty active at those conferences.
Awesome.
And in the beginning of the show, we talked a little bit about call to adventure. So what is Krause House's call to adventure?
Yeah, I think it's as simple as saying is like, hey, if you are interested in basketball and want to come hang out with people that desire to one day own a team, we have the place for you.
I love it.
Beautiful.
You want to go ahead? So our next section is something we call okay, not okay. So I'll ask you, it's like something really fun, casual. We'll ask you a couple questions and you just have to say okay or not okay.
Okay,
Harrison, you want to go first or?
Yeah, sure. Kobe Bryant in your Mount Rushmore. Okay or not okay?
Okay. Can I elaborate on my answers too, or just rapid fire? Okay. Growing up on the East Coast, I don't think there was that same kind of like Lakers Kobe craze. Maybe as you're on the West Coast, but obviously it's Kobe Bryant. He's one of the most talented players of all time. What really leveled up, I ran into him at a gym one time in New York, and watching him interact with every person that came up to him and genuinely like appreciating all the conversations, talking with people at least 5-10 minutes. It was like that really leveled up. Obviously, it has nothing to do with basketball, but seeing that he was a kind of a great human and how dedicated he is to the game. Yeah, I'd put him on there. That's okay.
Cool.
NBA games in the metaverse.
Ooh. I'm gonna lean not okay until I see. I need to see it happen. I've actually watched. I sat like courtside or whatever at an NBA game in VR one time, and I was like, okay, cool. I can't see this doing this consistently. I think it will get there. I just need to see. I need to see more. I'm like a tangible guy. I need to see it kind of work somewhat in action and just be pilled in that regard. So for today, I'll say not okay, but that could change.
Okay. What about the ETH merge potential bull run? Okay or not okay?
Yeah, it's so funny. I keep seeing conflicting things here. I would say okay. I think it's okay. Not to say I'm some ETH maxi, but I think
You're a Krause House maxi. We know that. We know you're not.
yeah, exactly. I'm a Krause maxi. So part of it is my own kind of like I want this to be the bull run that people are calling for. So I'm gonna say okay.
Not financial advice though. You have to.
Not fun. Yeah, every disclaimer, put it up there.
Lot of collections have gone Creative Commons CCO. So CCO NFT collections.
Oh man, I just talked about this last night. I think. I say okay. I think sometimes people, the person I was talking about was kind of describing it as if it was like this unlock feature. I think you have to have all the things that make a good NFT community first, and then the Creative Commons on top of that is accelerates an already kind of new, interesting, and novel idea to expand the brand. So I don't think that should be your differentiating feature. I just think that if it's right for you and your community, then it actually makes a ton of sense. I think we actually called so just like what open source software did to revolutionize the internet. We kind of look at DAOs as open source communities, and so I think these or like further open source NFTs and things like that are a really powerful concept in general. So I'll say okay.
Kind of a niche NBA. Okay or not okay?
Let's do it.
Enos Freedom, formerly known as Enos Cantor, still a free agent. Okay or not okay?
Not okay. Not okay in the sense I wouldn't sign him.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yeah. Is it okay that he's still a free agent? Yes. Yeah, that's totally fine. Right. Mine just what was it? Not that I'm not a Enos guy, but I think there's I'm looking around at some of the free agents right now, and I think that some people probably deserve a spot, and he doesn't one that pops out necessarily to me.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely after this conversation, I need to join Krause House. I'm way too involved in basketball to not be a member.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking. I'm like, Harrison, you know a lot of your NBA trivia, so I'm not sure why you're not already in Krause House.
Yeah, let's get you in there, man.
I will be joining.
So let me ask a last one before we kind of close out. Non-basketball, non-crypto related, but a very controversial one that we try to ask a lot of people: pineapple on pizza.
Man, for my days in New York, I admit I'm just a pizza snob. I have a really high bar. I'm super particular. I know that's like so childish of me, but that's a big not okay for me. I can't do it.
Guess it's 2 against 1 here on that question.
I mean, there's got to be something about it because it is popular enough, despite how weird it sounds. Um, but yeah, just like my brain and my heart just like won't let me do it. I can't do it.
Well, I think that's a great place to kind of wrap up. Flex, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you on Twitter or any socials if they want to connect with
Yeah, yeah. So Krause House first. So we're Krause House DAO on Twitter. If you really want to go up to the latest, like sign up for our newsletter and just any sort of information you could want, check out krausehouse.club. I think I had mentioned earlier. Me personally, I'm Flex with two X's, Chapman. So FLEXX Chapman. There was already a Flex Chapman, which I mean, who would have thought? So I had to sneak another X in there. But you can find me there. Like I said, DMs are open. Anyone who's interested in what we're building, like, feel free to get in touch and reach out. I'm happy to chat.
Harrison, what about you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm at Harrison Ammon. My last name spelled Ammon. Hopefully, you know how to spell Harrison. But yeah, come to my page for a bunch of Twitter or NBA Twitter retweets and crypto Twitter retweets.
And then mine is Shreyas Gavit on Twitter, Shreyas Gavit 11 on Twitter, or just Shreyas Gavit on LinkedIn. Come to my Twitter or for just GMs pretty much, and then LinkedIn for anything Web3. And then definitely if you're listening to this show from Krause House's community or anybody else, and you're not following us, Okcoin on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, definitely follow us and stay tuned for the next episode of Okcoin Live. Thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Flex.